It's now the early 1920s. World War I has just finished, and Cunard's trio of ships, the Lusitania, Mauritania, and Aquitania, had survived the war. Aquitania and Mauritania was converted to troop transport to transport all the remaining surviving troops on Europe back to the Americas or Halifax, while Lusitania herself was put back to normal civilian service. She finally reached her golden years as a passenger liner. Throughout the 1920s, she traveled through the Atlantic along with her sister ships. The Blue Ribbon traded hands to the Lusitania and then the Mauritania. But by the turn of the 1920s, both Lusitania and Mauritania looked dated. The same can be said to Aquitania due to the new massive superliners prowling the oceans, such as the SS Bremen and the SS Europa by 1928. To add insult to injury, the Bremen stole the Blue Ribbon from Mauritania. With rumors of the French building a massive superliner was spread around, Cunard had to act. Cunard first drew the draft of the behemoth RMS Queen Mary, and with that its giant price tag, by 1930, one after another each ship was scrapped as it was increasingly getting more and more expensive to operate each ship. The first ship to be scrapped was RMS Mauritania, which will be followed by Lusitania. She was then laid up for almost half a year until an unknown buyer bought her to be converted into a museum ship. She cheated death once more. She was brought up to Clydebank to have her decks and the ship itself cleaned. And by September 26, 1934, she also managed to witness the launch of the behemoth RMS Queen Mary. Many of her fittings were stripped off of her. The main intention of the buyer was to completely refurbish all of the wooden interior spaces. Some of the wooden decking were also replaced during this time, and her hull painted white. Her engines were supposed to be polished up too, but the repainting of the many interior and exterior elements of the ship took a huge toll on the wallet of the buyer, and by the time of 1935, she was again in a huge risk of being sold off for scrap. She was then laid up in Clydebank. Cunard is now left to their own devices onto what to do with their grand old lady. She was mostly left untouched apart from the stripping of some interior decor, which can be replaced. So Cunard was set on converting her to take on the Britain to Sydney, Australia route. She would be one of the most luxurious ships to ever embark on that specific route. This took another 3 years to make Lusitania seaworthy again. It was found out that her third funnel was severely corroded, so it was replaced. Many of her lifeboat davits were missing too, or even rusted over, so they were also replaced. The drum-type cowl ventilators were replaced with the more traditional cowl ventilators. She looked more like the Mauritania if anything by the end of 1938. Her boilers was fired up and now was running on diesel electric rather than the old-fashioned coal and steam. Her interiors were about to be fitted in, but little did the dock workers knew, later that year the world would be plunged into the most deadliest conflict since World War I.